Good morning. Have you seen my new mug? If you know, you know. Hi, I'm Melinda. Welcome to Web of Stories. I am here with my weekly wrap-up, and I am not in Boring Corner. We sort of have decorated, so I thought I was going to take advantage of that and do that. So you can't see, you can only see a little bit of the boxes that are back there because we haven't finished decorating yet. We had an issue, a technical issue with lights that kind of stopped decorating once we had started. So we were, those things happen. Also, if I sound different on this video, it is because I upgraded, let me show you. I upgraded my phone yesterday, and this was my microphone that kind of went on my tripod. This doesn't fit in my phone anymore. So we're just using the phone microphone. So hopefully it sounds okay. I don't know. Anywho, welcome. How has your December been going? This was a busy week for me. The beginning of the week was busy. So I had, on Monday, I had a Girl Scout service unit meeting. So it was for the adults, getting ready for cookie season, which is coming next month. Cookies. Woo-hoo. It's kind of different this year because we've switched bakers in our service unit. I'm going to try and remember to look here so it doesn't look like I'm looking off to the side. I'm going to try to remember to look at the camera. We switched bakers this year, so there's a lot of new systems that we haven't had to deal with before. So it was kind of a big meeting. Tuesday night, I had an Advent service and potluck at church. So those 2 days were just busy, busy, busy. And I had some reading, which I'll get to the reading, but I had some reading I had to get done by this week. And so that kind of made reading a little bit hard. I'm supposed to be, I am doing it. I am doing a group read or reread in my case. And I think a reread in most people's cases of my Ántonia on my Discord. And I feel really bad because I haven't been able to make much progress on it. I'm hoping to be finished. I'm sure I will. According to my Kobo, I have like 13 minutes left. But to finish the first section today, I had other stuff. That's what happens. Anyway, a lot of people talk about what they have been watching on television, and I have not watched just a single thing. I have really no desire to watch television right now, which is fine. The problem, though, is I had said in an earlier video a couple weeks ago that I was going to catch up on watching Shakespeare performances for the Bard Group and then give you like a feedback of what I thought of all these. And that's hard to do when you haven't watched any. So I don't know. That video is most likely not going up in December. Anyhow, because I'm just busy reading and avoiding reality. Anyway, let me get to the books that I finished this week. So I finished 4 books. I'm going to do them a little out of order, and that's fine. There's a reason why. We'll get to that. The first book I finished is this one, The Examiner by Janice Hallett. And I buddy read this with Lori at Books, Ink, and Paper. So this is Janice Hallett's most recent book. If you have never read Janice Hallett, she writes mysteries, but she writes in a very unique way. She does what's called multimedia writing. So you don't just get pages of narration. You don't. You get text messages and emails, and that's how the story's put together. So she has a novella. We're not going to talk about The Christmas Appeal. Not that it's a bad book. It just, as far as this discussion goes, isn't really important. But her 3 previous books are The Appeal, The Twyford Code, and The Mysterious Case of the Alberta Angels. And each of those books had a really kind of unique feel to them. And this is not criticism of this book, but this was the first book that felt very much like an earlier book of hers. So this book, got something in there. This book, felt very much like The Appeal. So if that was your favorite Janice Hallett book, or if you liked it, there you go. And as usual with Janice Hallett, I can't give you too many details about this book, but I can give you a setup. The setup is we are focused on a cohort. Oh, the cat's going to come say hi. A cohort of like a master's program for like a business/arts program. And the way this master's program is set up is once all the work is complete, an outside examiner, so that's basically a professor from a different university or a different part of the university, will come and look over all the work and make sure everything is hi, Alice. She's right here. You say hi? Put your head up and say hi. Oh, there we go. Yes, I know you want cuddle time. So this outside examiner will come and go over everything and make sure everything was graded fairly. So we start this book and the examiner is reading all of the stuff that came from it. And he's like, I think something horrible happened with this. That's the setup. That's all I'm going to say. Anything else would be a spoiler. And there's lots of twists in this. I really enjoyed this book. This and The Mysterious Case of the Albertan Angels are probably my two favorite books. I would give an edge to The Mysterious Case of the Albertan Angels simply because there is a technology element of this book, which is not necessary to understand for the story, but I didn't understand it like over my head. Oh, sorry, sweetie. And I felt like I was missing something. I wasn't really missing something. You don't need to be able to follow all the technology to understand this book, but that was just me. Very minor little quibble, but it did give the edge to The Mysterious Case of the Albertan Angels. The reason why those two are my favorites is both of those books really like made me think afterwards. I mean, the appeal is great. It's very entertaining. It's a great way. If you've never read Janice Hallett, that's a great entry point. The Twyford Code, I remember really enjoying it. I now don't remember much about it. But I really was like, after I finished both The Mysterious Case of the Albertan Angels and The Examiner, I was like, whoa, okay. What am I thinking about this? And really had to kind of go back over it. And discussing it with Lori made it even better because I even, a lot of things came out. And I can't tell you any of it because it would all be a spoiler, but I do recommend this, highly recommended. You don't need to have read any Janice Hallett before reading this. My only thing with Janice Hallett is that I would say is don't start with the Twyford Code. That's probably her most, I don't want to say, I guess it is kind of difficult. The mechanism behind it, I think is a lot harder to understand than with her other books. So, but that's still a good book. I mean, it's not my favorite, but it's still a good book. But this is a great one. And the next book I finished is it's going to be my last essay collection of the year, only because I like to go into the new year with not carrying any books over. So that's why I'm waiting until 2025 to start another essay collection. And this was an absolutely delightful collection. It's Animals Strike Curious Poses by Elena Passarello. And I did not realize this when I got this. This is a winner of the Whitting Award in nonfiction. The Elena Passarello, she wasn't born here, but she does live in Oregon. So she is an Oregon author. She is a professor at Oregon State University in Corvallis. So this book talks about using different animals as examples, talks about like how animals are not captured like trapped, but how they're depicted, how they are seen through human eyes and different ways that goes. And there's a lot of different flavors to these essays. Some of them are really playful. One of the ones that I really liked, and I'm going to have to look up and see which one it was. I can't remember. It's a bird, and it's about a bird and Mozart, which I just thought was a delightful little one. Another one that I liked was another one. Oh, I think it's this one. I think it's this one. Sorry, I should have been prepared for this. No, it is not. So each one, I'll show you the first, like they have like the animal and kind of like what they're talking about. So these are each based on like a real animal. And this is a woolly mammoth that they talk about. But there's one about a tortoise that is very good. And I thought that one was sort of the quintessential essay in this because it was delightful and it was funny, but it was also had this element of sadness with it because of the way humans treat animals. Really, really enjoyed this. Speaking of animals, really enjoyed this and highly recommended. If you like nature writing about animals, anything like that, it's Animals Strike Curious Poses by Elena Passarello. And then I finished another book, but we're going to skip over that. So you get some cat butt there. And we're going to go to this book, which I'm not going to say too much about because it is for my book club and we're discussing it. I'm filming on Friday. You'll see this on Saturday. So tonight as you watch this, and that is The Heart's Invisible Furies by John Boyne. This is a book I've been meaning to read for years. And my book club finally got me to do it. And I'm so glad I did. This is a beautiful book. Kind of like Animals Strike Curious Poses. It is both funny and delightful and very sad at the same time. It is kind of like a walk through history sort of book. You start right after World War II and you go to 2015 and you follow this guy. You start with his mother, so you actually follow him from his birth. this man in Ireland, growing up in Ireland, and what it was like growing up in Ireland as a gay man and a gay teenager, coming up. And you follow his friendships, and it is just beautiful. Definitely a highly rated book for me. There's going to be a lot to discuss tomorrow. Not quite a 5-star because there was a character in this book that I really felt like I needed more from. He's a very important person, and Cyril is the main character's name. It's a very important person in Cyril's life, and I felt like we just didn't get to know him. And that was my quibble with this book, is I didn't get to know this character as much as I would like. Excuse me, nose is itching as usual. I actually felt like we got to know his parents better than we knew him. It was very strange, but so is definitely worth it. It is a 580-page book. Doesn't read like it. It is. However, this was the priority reading for me, which is why I kind of had to put my Ántonia a little bit on the back burner while I finish this. Okay, so the last book I finished was an audiobook from the library. And so last week I talked about White Rural Rage, and it's one of those books that was written about the election, before the election, and now it's kind of weird to read, one of those books. This is the same thing. And I cannot talk about this book without being political. 100% understand if you don't want to be in with that. So you can just subscribe, join my Discord. Thank you. I'll see you in the next video, and go on, because I'm just going to talk about this book for the rest of the video. But if you want to stay, here it is. And this book was sort of the polar opposite of White Rural Rage, which you can go back and see my wrap up from last week. That was not a book I liked. This book is Attack from Within: How Disinformation is Sabotaging America by Barbara McQuade, who from now on I will call Barb McQuade, because Barbara McQuade is a former U.S. attorney, former federal prosecutor. She worked in the Obama administration, blah, blah, blah. She's now a professor of law at Michigan, which is her alma mater. And she's on a lot of podcasts that I listen to, most notably #Sisters-in-Law, which is a fantastic podcast. But on these podcasts, she's always called Barb McQuade. So in my mind, she's Barb McQuade. And that is how I will refer to her. But this book, so I went into this book thinking, okay, this will be, and I listened to it. This one I really did want to listen to because I'm so used to hearing her voice on podcasts. But it's about disinformation. And I thought, okay, well, this will be interesting. I know much, but maybe I'll glean a couple things. I learned so much from this book. So much. She goes and she starts by going this is what disinformation is, which is not just a case of, it is not just someone lying or twisting, for political, just sort of maybe twisting things a little bit politically to kind of make a point. No. It is a very consciously made effort to disinform people. That's what disinformation is. And she talks about kind of where it started, how, the first real practitioner of it, or of modern times at least, was Hitler. And then, why it is so effective, why humans are so susceptible to it. And she really goes into the psychology, which I appreciated because I learned things there. She went through kind of what happened from, during 45 going in, and, what happened in 2020, all that early part of 2020, January, first part of January, how all that happened. She really goes into that, and she shows how this is disinformation. This is how it was used, and this is a very conscious use of it. So before I go any further with this book, I need to kind of give you my little thing on cable news, because I'm going to talk a lot about it, and I don't want to say, well, this is just where I stand on cable news. And that is, I have a really deeply held moral opposition to cable news. I don't watch it. I think that a lot of the problems, or it is a major factor in a lot of the problems we have in our country right now, is cable news. Now, the highest level, a channel that plays news 24 hours, there's nothing inherently wrong with that. Again, very high level, except it doesn't work well with human nature, because human nature is you're just going to stay tuned into it. Then you add in the fact that these different channels, when it was just CNN, when I think it even just started with headline news, which was really just the headlines for 24 hours, right? And then it was CNN. When it was just CNN, I mean, that wasn't great, but it was still, there was more value to it, or I should say there was more integrity to it, because it was just in the business of giving the news. But these news stations, these news channels are businesses. So now they're trying to increase their viewership, and they're doing these things to try to get you to continue watching it. And one of the ways is to scare you, because fear is a great motivator. If you're scared, you're going to keep wanting to know what's going on. And so they do try to scare you. And then the other thing they do, and this is what I didn't realize until reading this book, is when humans are experiencing certain emotions, fear being one of them, but the greater one is actually anxiety, they are far more susceptible to disinformation. They're far more likely to believe it. They are far more likely to not realize what it is, to absorb it, all these things. But anxiety is really the great emotion that feeds into disinformation. And more than fear, these channels try to produce anxiety. An example. One time when I was down in Arizona, so my mother was one of those people who got completely sucked into Fox News and went down that rabbit hole. My father has his wits about him. He doesn't watch Fox News anymore. He watches CNN, but he watches it all the freaking time. But I was down visiting one time, and he tried to be the good host. So he turned on MSNBC for me. I don't even remember what they were talking about, but it was MSNBC. So I'm sure I agreed with whatever they were talking about. The issue was not frightening me. I wasn't scared about what they were talking about or what they were discussing. But just watching this, I could feel my anxiety just keep going up and up and up until I had to tell my father to turn the television off. So generating that feeling of anxiety is one of the things that keeps people tuned into cable news, but it is also something that makes humans very susceptible to disinformation. So that's my thing on cable news. Now, why that's so important is because in our modern day and age, cable news is one of the major sources of information. It's not the only one. We also have social media. We are no longer in the age of you read your paper in the morning, and then at night, before, during, or after dinner, you watched your half hour of local news and your half hour of national news, and that was it. I think that's probably a healthy way to do things, but we don't do that anymore. Now it's, we have all these different sources. And the cable news, and yes, Fox News is bad. Fox News is not the only one. As I said, when I had that horrible reaction, that was to MSNBC. So it wasn't because of what they were talking about. It was because of how they were talking about it. They keep trying to amp it up because they need to have viewers. And because the more viewers they have, the more advertising money they can have. It's all a business. It's not about the people. It's not even about the news. And one thing that she talked about, which, I kind of knew about all these pieces together, but I hadn't put them all together. And I think this is a really telling example of what's going on here, is in the 2020 election, the first network to call the election for Joe Biden was Fox News. I know. And after that happened, like within a day or two, probably because there was someone who was not happy about it and said, quit watching Fox News, but their viewership was cut in half. Boom, just like that. And that's a big deal for these, because they're going to start losing their advertising dollars. And so it was at that point that the decision was made by the suits at Fox News to run with the Dominion voting machine story, which is known to be a completely false story that they knew was false. It ended up costing them over $750 million with a B dollars, because they consciously put out this disinformation, and they lost in a defamation suit. They knew what they were doing, and they were doing it. They knew why they were doing it. They were doing it to get back these viewers that they had, and also, well, I think the same thing, to curry favor with someone, but would also bring back these viewers. It was a financial choice. They didn't care. They didn't care that it wasn't true. They just wanted the viewers, and they wanted the dollars. So that is a big issue. There's also the issue that politicians who use disinformation like this, they know what they're doing. They're not They're not just lying for no reason. This book, ironically, came out the same day as White Rural Rage. So I think it's really interesting that I read them back to back, or listened to them, because I did audio on both of them. And because they're of these books where, they were really meant to be read and thought about before the election in a way to kind of make you look at the election a different way. But then now I'm reading them after the election and, that all that. But an example, which was not in the book because it had not happened yet, was the story of the Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, that, they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs, right? Which is ridiculous. Like, any sane person should know that. And someone just kept repeating that. Now, it wasn't just because he kept repeating it and he was stuck on it. It's because he knows, because he's been told. I don't think he knows. I don't think that he's that much of a mastermind. I think people told him this is how it works. But the more you repeat it, even how crazy it is, the more you repeat it, the more people are going to start to believe it. So just keep repeating it. And we even know that whole story was made up by J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance admitted that he made that story up. And you don't hear that. You just hear they're eating the cats, they're eating the dogs. And what happened? Bomb threats, people put in danger. Election going the wrong way. These things happened for something that was completely false. And it was a concerted effort to put out disinformation. And there are so many, she does go into QAnon, which I personally, and I think anyone who doesn't buy into QAnon, and there's people on all sides of the spectrum who don't buy into QAnon. There are a lot of, not every Republican buys into QAnon, let's be realistic, but there are people who buy into QAnon. Just like there's people on the progressive side who buy into some of those. Thirsty, but QAnon's kind of the big one. Like, what is it about QAnon that gets people sucked in? She goes into all that. And then she does the thing that was not done in White Rural Rage that drove me nuts. And she actually gives you a plan of action, what to do about it. And some of them are things that, like, personally we can't do about it. They're different things that can be done on the government level, things that I wasn't aware about. One is that you can regulate, it's legal to regulate algorithms. So the government could regulate algorithms on social media sites. That is something the government could do. They're not going to do it for at least 4 years, but they could do it. And she had a bunch of these. I won't go into all of them. A lot of them were things you'd heard about, like the fairness doctrine and the code about, I can't remember which one it is, where social media platforms aren't held liable for what's put on the social media platform. There's a rule about that. She goes into all those. But then she also talks about things that you can do on a personal level. Big one, big, huge one. Don't feed the trolls. Not just for your own, your own mental health, but also, okay, you get into a fight with someone online, and fine. If you want to fight if that helps you, go ahead and do it. But if you're someone who's just like, I just have to make sure you're wrong, sort of thing, just don't. But so you see a really ridiculous comment on social media and you call it out and then you move on. You aren't just calling it out and moving on. You are putting it on your own timeline or whatever, your feed or whatever. And then other people see it who know you, and then that's how it proliferates. The better thing to do is to block and move on. Obviously, common sense. And by the way, I will share with you my personal mantra for social media. And this has served me well. I only recently adopted it, so. But I don't invite people into my house just so they can take a crap on my living room floor. If I post something and you say something rude, I'm like, oh, you're banned. I'm not even, just it's just not, But she had a lot of other things that she talked about. There was one I took a little bit of an issue with. Go back to what I said about cable news networks. And she talked about, there have been studies done on people who watch Fox News. There have been a number of studies. You can look them up. There was a documentary about it. But, if you take people who are Fox News watchers, and her thing was like, well, and you make them watch another channel for 30 days, then you test them. They test higher on empathy and, all sorts of things like that. You go read that. Hers was, get your family that watches Fox News to watch CNN. And I'm like, no, get them to not watch cable news, just in general. Barb McQuade is a commentator. I think she's on MSNBC, might be CNN. I think it's MSNBC or CNN. I don't know because I don't watch them. But yes, there was very much a get off of Fox News sort of thing, which I understand. Fox News has shown that they have no qualms. Have no qualms whatsoever about disinformation. This is a matter of legal record now. We know that. But again, I'll refer you back to my experience watching MSNBC. So it's not just Fox News. Anyway, I thought this was a fantastic book. Yes, it was meant to be read before November. But there's still a lot of value in reading it. And I think even now that we're in this place again, there's a lot of value to read this book going forward. And it was a 5-star book for me, even with that little CNN thing. But I highly recommend it. It's Attack from Within, How Disinformation is Sabotaging America by Barbara McQuade or Barbara McQuade. But yes, and FYI, I am still... So I keep saying, I don't know why I am drawn to these books. And part of it's like, obviously, I know why I'm drawn to these books. And then another one is like, I really don't know why. You'd think I wouldn't want to be reading this stuff or listening to it because I'm doing them on audio. But I am listening to another one, kind of sort of in this sort of family of books that were kind of written before the election to be, whatever. It's a longer one, so I don't know if I'm going to be done with it by next wrap up. But I will definitely let you go. This one's going to be really interesting, I think. I just started it last night, and I think it's going to be very unique and interesting. I won't tell you what it is here. You can just look down below. It'll be listed. It is down below. Anyway, I am under 30 minutes. My goal was to keep this video under 30 minutes, so I'm going to stop now. Like, subscribe, join my Discord. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.